Question 1. The audit findings indicate that several key operational processes within Coca-Cola HBC's bottling facilities are experiencing significant delays, leading to increased lead times for product distribution. Management is eager to implement rapid process optimization strategies to address these issues. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for efficiency with responsible operational management? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of current workflows, gather data on bottlenecks, consult with frontline staff for insights, and then design and test incremental improvements before full-scale deployment. Option B. Immediately implement a new, unproven software system that promises to automate several manual tasks without conducting a thorough pilot study or assessing its integration with existing infrastructure. Option C. Implement changes based on anecdotal evidence from a single high-performing facility, without verifying if similar conditions and challenges exist across all Coca-Cola HBC operations. Option D. Focus exclusively on reducing labor costs by consolidating roles and increasing workload for remaining staff, assuming this will inherently speed up processes. Correct answer is B. Immediately implement a new, unproven software system that promises to automate several manual tasks without conducting a thorough pilot study or assessing its integration with existing infrastructure. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with adherence to Coca-Cola HBC's internal policies and potentially broader industry best practices for process optimization. The pressure to demonstrate immediate improvements can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term sustainability or compliance. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that are both effective and ethically sound, ensuring that no regulatory breaches occur and that the company's reputation is upheld. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven review of existing processes to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements with clear metrics for success. This aligns with principles of good corporate governance and responsible business operations, which are implicitly expected in any hiring assessment. By focusing on understanding the root causes of issues before proposing solutions, this approach minimizes the risk of unintended negative consequences and ensures that changes are sustainable and beneficial. It reflects a commitment to continuous improvement, a key tenet in modern business management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on quality or employee well-being would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a decline in product standards, increased errors, and potential breaches of consumer protection regulations or labor laws if employee welfare is compromised. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing established approval processes for implementing changes, even if seemingly minor, would violate internal control frameworks and could expose Coca-Cola HBC to operational risks and reputational damage. This demonstrates a disregard for corporate governance and risk management protocols. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the problem thoroughly, evaluating potential solutions against established criteria, including compliance, efficiency, and impact, and seeking appropriate stakeholder input before implementation. This structured approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with organizational objectives and ethical standards. Question 2. Quality control measures reveal a recurring minor deviation in the fill level of beverage bottles at a Coca-Cola HBC bottling plant. While the deviation is currently within the broader acceptable range, it is consistently at the lower end. Option A. Initiate a detailed root cause analysis to identify the specific equipment, process, or human factors contributing to the consistent lower fill levels and implement targeted corrective actions. Option B. Instruct the production line operators to slightly adjust the filling machine settings to compensate for the observed deviation without further investigation. Option C. Document the deviation but deem it insignificant given it remains within the acceptable range and continue current production operations without intervention. Option D. Temporarily halt production to recalibrate all filling equipment, assuming a general equipment malfunction without specific diagnostic steps. The correct answer is A. Initiate a detailed root cause analysis to identify the specific equipment, process, or human factors contributing to the consistent lower fill levels and implement targeted corrective actions. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with the integrity of Coca-Cola HBC's product quality and compliance with relevant regulations. Pressure to meet production targets can create a temptation to overlook minor deviations, but doing so risks compromising consumer safety, brand reputation, and legal standing. Careful judgment is required to identify and address issues proactively rather than reactively. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of the root cause of the quality control deviations. This means not just identifying the problem, but understanding why it occurred. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that corrective actions are effective and prevent recurrence. From a regulatory perspective, this proactive and thorough approach demonstrates a commitment to product safety and compliance, which is often a requirement under food safety legislation and industry standards. Ethically, it upholds the company's responsibility to its consumers to provide safe and high-quality products. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate production adjustments without understanding the root cause fails to address the underlying issue. This could lead to recurring problems and potential regulatory noncompliance if the deviations are significant enough to impact product safety or labeling accuracy. Another incorrect approach, which involves downplaying or ignoring the deviations to avoid disrupting production, is ethically unsound and legally risky. It prioritizes short-term gains over long-term integrity and consumer well-being, potentially leading to severe penalties if discovered during an audit or if a product recall becomes necessary. A third incorrect approach, which involves implementing superficial fixes without proper analysis, also risks recurrence and demonstrates a lack of due diligence, which can have negative regulatory and reputational consequences. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes thorough investigation, data-driven analysis, and adherence to established quality and safety protocols. This involves escalating issues appropriately, collaborating with relevant departments e.g., quality assurance, production, regulatory affairs, and documenting all actions taken. The goal is to foster a culture of continuous improvement and accountability, ensuring that quality is embedded in every stage of the process. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal inconsistent fill levels in bottled beverages produced by Coca-Cola HBC. Which of the following approaches best addresses this process optimization challenge? Option A. Immediately increase the production line speed to compensate for perceived minor variations, assuming the overall volume output will remain within acceptable parameters. Option B. Implement a series of manual adjustments to the filling machinery based on anecdotal observations from line supervisors, without formal data analysis or calibration. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis involving data collection on equipment performance, operator procedures, and environmental factors to identify the underlying reasons for the fill level variations, and then implement targeted corrective actions. Option D. Focus on retraining operators on basic filling procedures, assuming human error is the sole cause of the inconsistent fill levels, without investigating potential equipment or process issues. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis involving data collection on equipment performance, operator procedures, and environmental factors to identify the underlying reasons for the fill level variations, and then implement targeted corrective actions. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with adherence to Coca-Cola HBC's internal quality standards and potentially broader industry best practices for process optimization. The pressure to improve output without compromising product integrity or safety necessitates a thorough understanding of the underlying issues and the potential impact of proposed solutions. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation into the root causes of the quality deviations. This means not just identifying the symptoms, e.g., inconsistent fill levels, but delving into the processes, equipment, and human factors that contribute to them. This methodical approach ensures that any implemented changes are targeted and sustainable, leading to genuine process improvement rather than superficial fixes. This aligns with principles of continuous improvement and operational excellence, which are implicitly expected in a hiring assessment for a company like Coca-Cola HBC. While specific external regulations for this exact scenario might not be detailed in a general hiring assessment, the underlying ethical obligation to produce a consistent and safe product, and the company's own commitment to quality form the basis for this approach. An approach that focuses solely on increasing line speed without understanding the root cause of the fill-level issue is professionally unacceptable. This would likely exacerbate existing problems or create new ones, leading to increased waste, potential product recalls, and damage to Coca-Cola HBC's brand reputation. It disregards the fundamental principle of addressing the why behind a problem. Another incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix, such as manual adjustments without proper calibration or training. This is a reactive measure that does not address the systemic issues. It can lead to inconsistent results, increased labor costs, and a failure to achieve long-term process optimization. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to thorough problem solving and a potential disregard for the long-term health of the production process. Finally, an approach that involves blaming individual operators without a comprehensive investigation into process or equipment failures is also professionally unsound. This fosters a negative work environment and fails to identify the true sources of the problem, which may lie in training, equipment maintenance, or process design. It is a superficial and counterproductive response. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes root cause analysis, data collection, and collaborative problem solving. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering relevant data, identifying potential causes, testing hypotheses, implementing solutions, and monitoring results. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, effective, and aligned with organizational goals and ethical responsibilities. Question 4. Compliance review shows that Coca-Cola HBC's current beverage production and distribution processes have several identified inefficiencies that could lead to increased operational costs. A proposal has been put forward to streamline these processes to achieve significant cost savings. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for process optimization with regulatory and ethical obligations? Option A. Modify product formulations to utilize less expensive ingredients, aiming for cost savings without a formal review of whether these changes impact product quality or consumer perception, as long as the final product remains legally permissible. Option B. Conduct a thorough analysis of existing processes, identify specific areas for improvement, and then consult with legal and compliance departments to ensure all proposed changes strictly adhere to competition laws, consumer protection regulations, and internal ethical guidelines before implementation. Option C. Focus on consolidating distribution networks to reduce logistics expenses, even if this means limiting the number of retail partners and potentially creating a less competitive market landscape. Option D. Implement process changes that prioritize speed and cost reduction, assuming that any resulting market advantages are a natural outcome of efficient operations and will not attract regulatory scrutiny. The correct answer is D. Implement process changes that prioritize speed and cost reduction, assuming that any resulting market advantages are a natural outcome of efficient operations and will not attract regulatory scrutiny. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to regulatory requirements and ethical conduct. Coca-Cola HBC, as a large multinational beverage company, operates within a complex web of regulations designed to ensure fair competition, consumer safety, and responsible business practices. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that enhance efficiency without inadvertently creating loopholes or encouraging practices that could violate these regulations. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate optimization and actions that could be construed as anti-competitive or misleading. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks or inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that are demonstrably compliant with all applicable laws and internal Coca-Cola HBC policies. This approach prioritizes understanding the regulatory landscape and ensuring that any proposed changes are vetted for compliance before implementation. Specifically, this involves consulting with legal and compliance departments to confirm that process optimization efforts do not lead to price fixing, market manipulation, or other anti-competitive behaviors prohibited by competition law. It also ensures that any changes to product labeling or marketing materials, which might be influenced by process changes, remain accurate and non-misleading, adhering to consumer protection regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. For instance, streamlining distribution channels in a way that creates exclusive territories or preferential treatment for certain retailers could violate competition laws by limiting market access for competitors or unfairly disadvantaging smaller businesses. Another incorrect approach might involve altering production processes to reduce ingredient costs without ensuring that the final product still meets all safety and quality standards mandated by food safety regulations. This could lead to product recalls, reputational damage, and severe legal penalties. Furthermore, implementing changes that reduce transparency in pricing or promotional activities could be seen as an attempt to mislead consumers or engage in unfair trading practices, violating consumer protection legislation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory environment relevant to Coca-Cola HBC's operations. This involves proactive engagement with legal and compliance teams to identify potential risks associated with any proposed process changes. A risk-based assessment should be conducted, evaluating the likelihood and impact of non-compliance. Solutions should be designed with compliance as a core requirement, not an afterthought. When evaluating different optimization strategies, professionals should ask, does this change create any potential for anti-competitive behavior? And does this change compromise consumer safety or lead to misleading information? This systematic, compliance-first mindset ensures that process optimization contributes to the company's success without exposing it to legal or ethical jeopardy. Question 5. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed change to Coca-Cola HBC's bottling process could significantly reduce operational expenses. However, this change involves substituting a previously approved, albeit more expensive, filtration system with a new, less costly one. What is the most responsible approach for Coca-Cola HBC to take regarding this proposed process optimization? Option A. Implement the new filtration system immediately to realize cost savings, assuming the supplier's assurances of equivalent performance are sufficient. Option B. Conduct a thorough, independent validation of the new filtration system's performance against all relevant food safety and quality standards, involving quality control and legal departments before any implementation. Option C. Proceed with the new filtration system, but monitor consumer complaints closely as the primary indicator of any potential issues. Option D. Negotiate a longer-term contract with the existing filtration system supplier to secure a slightly lower price, thereby avoiding the risks associated with a new system. Correct answer is A. Implement the new filtration system immediately to realize cost savings, assuming the supplier's assurances of equivalent performance are sufficient. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's management team as they evaluate a proposed process optimization. The challenge lies in balancing potential efficiency gains and cost reductions against the imperative to maintain product quality, consumer safety, and adherence to regulatory standards. A hasty decision based solely on immediate cost savings could inadvertently lead to long-term reputational damage, regulatory penalties, and a decline in consumer trust, all of which have significant financial implications that outweigh short-term benefits. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any optimization aligns with Coca-Cola HBC's commitment to excellence and its legal obligations. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that prioritizes regulatory compliance and consumer safety above all else. This means thoroughly evaluating the proposed changes to ensure they do not compromise the integrity of the production process, the quality of ingredients, or the final product safety profile. Specifically, this approach would involve consulting relevant food safety regulations, conducting rigorous testing to validate the optimized process, and ensuring all stakeholders, including quality control and legal departments, are involved in the decision-making. This aligns with the overarching principle of responsible business conduct and adherence to food and beverage industry regulations, which mandate that companies operate in a manner that protects public health and maintains product standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without adequate consideration for regulatory impact would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal framework governing food production, which is designed to prevent harm to consumers. Such an approach risks violating regulations related to ingredient sourcing, manufacturing processes, and quality control, potentially leading to product recalls, fines, and legal action. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough validation would also be flawed. This overlooks the critical need for robust testing and verification to ensure the optimized process consistently meets all quality and safety benchmarks. The ethical failure here is a lack of due diligence, which can expose consumers to risks and damage the company's reputation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all potential impacts of a proposed change, including operational, financial, regulatory, and ethical considerations. This framework necessitates a risk-based assessment, where potential negative outcomes are identified and mitigated. It requires cross-functional collaboration, ensuring that expertise from quality assurance, legal, operations, and marketing is integrated into the evaluation. Finally, the decision should be guided by a commitment to long-term sustainability and stakeholder trust, rather than short-term gains. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal a recurring inconsistency in the carbonation levels of Coca-Cola, HBC's flagship beverage, across different production batches. Which of the following approaches best addresses this process optimization challenge, while adhering to industry best practices and regulatory expectations for product consistency and safety? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the carbonation issue, involving detailed examination of raw material specifications, equipment calibration logs, and environmental factors before proposing and piloting targeted process modifications. Option B. Reduce the frequency of carbonation checks during the production process to streamline operations and compensate for the observed inconsistencies. Option C. Implement immediate, widespread adjustments to the syrup-to-water mixing ratios across all lines, based on anecdotal feedback from a few line supervisors, to quickly increase carbonation. Option D. Focus solely on increasing the speed of the bottling line to outpace the rate of carbonation loss, assuming the issue is inherent to the product's shelf life. The correct answer is C. Implement immediate, widespread adjustments to the syrup-to-water mixing ratios across all lines, based on anecdotal feedback from a few line supervisors, to quickly increase carbonation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's operations team due to the potential for inconsistent product quality impacting consumer trust and regulatory compliance. The need to optimize processes while maintaining high standards requires a nuanced approach that balances efficiency with adherence to established quality and safety protocols. Careful judgment is essential to avoid compromising product integrity or violating any applicable food safety regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the entire production line, from raw material sourcing to final packaging, to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement. This approach is best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and proactive risk management, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by food safety regulations and industry best practices. By focusing on root cause analysis and implementing data-driven solutions, Coca-Cola HBC can ensure that process optimization efforts enhance, rather than detract from, product quality and safety. This aligns with the general expectation under food safety legislation that businesses must have systems in place to ensure food is safe and of the quality expected by consumers. An approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough analysis risks introducing new defects or failing to address existing ones, potentially leading to non-compliance with food safety standards. For instance, making changes without understanding the impact on critical control points could violate HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points, principles, which are fundamental to food safety management systems. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on quality. This could lead to the use of inferior ingredients or the relaxation of quality checks, which would be ethically questionable and could breach consumer protection laws that mandate products meet certain standards of quality and safety. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without objective data is professionally unsound. It lacks the rigor required for effective process optimization and can lead to misguided decisions that negatively affect product quality and regulatory standing. Professional decision-making in such situations should involve a structured problem-solving methodology, such as DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, which emphasizes data collection, root cause identification, and validated solutions, ensuring that any process changes are both effective and compliant. Question 7. Quality control measures reveal a consistent pattern of minor inconsistencies in the carbonation levels of bottled beverages on a specific production line at Coca-Cola HBC. To address this, which of the following process optimization approaches would be most professionally sound and compliant with industry best practices for maintaining product quality and regulatory adherence? Option A. Instruct line operators to manually adjust carbonation levels based on their individual judgment during production runs, without formal procedural changes or additional quality checks. Option B. Immediately increase the production speed of the bottling line to compensate for any minor perceived quality variations, assuming the overall volume output is the primary concern. Option C. Conduct a thorough review and update of the existing standard operating procedures, SOP, for the bottling line, focusing on syrup-to-water ratios, mixing times, and carbonation pressure settings, followed by operator retraining. Option D. Implement a new automated inspection system for carbonation levels without revising current operational SOPs or retraining staff on its integration. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review and update of the existing standard operating procedures, SOP, for the bottling line, focusing on syrup-to-water ratios, mixing times, and carbonation pressure settings, followed by operator retraining. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's operations team due to the potential for inconsistent product quality impacting consumer trust and regulatory compliance. The need to optimize processes while maintaining high standards requires a nuanced approach that balances efficiency with adherence to established quality and safety protocols. Careful judgment is essential to avoid shortcuts that could lead to reputational damage or regulatory scrutiny. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of existing standard operating procedures, SOP, for the bottling line. This method is professionally sound because it directly addresses the root causes of quality deviations by refining established, documented processes. It aligns with good manufacturing practices, GMP, and any relevant food safety regulations applicable to Coca-Cola HBC's operating jurisdiction, which mandate documented procedures for quality assurance. By focusing on SOPs, the company ensures that any changes are traceable, repeatable, and auditable, thereby maintaining consistent product quality and meeting regulatory expectations for process control. An incorrect approach of immediately increasing production speed without a corresponding review of SOPs is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to increased errors, compromised product integrity, and potential non-compliance with quality standards. It bypasses the necessary steps to ensure that the faster process can still consistently deliver quality products, risking regulatory breaches related to product safety and labeling accuracy. Another incorrect approach of relying solely on visual inspection by line operators to identify defects without updating or reinforcing SOPs is also professionally flawed. While operator vigilance is important, it is a reactive measure and not a proactive process optimization strategy. It places undue reliance on individual judgment, which can be inconsistent, and fails to address systemic issues that may be causing the quality control measures to reveal deviations. This approach lacks the systematic rigor required for robust quality management and may not meet regulatory requirements for documented quality control systems. A third incorrect approach of implementing new, unproven technology without thoroughly integrating it into existing SOPs and conducting pilot testing is professionally risky. While innovation can drive efficiency, deploying new technology without proper validation and procedural updates can introduce unforeseen quality issues and operational disruptions. This can lead to non-compliance if the new technology fails to consistently meet quality specifications, or if the associated SOPs are not adequately revised to reflect its operation, potentially violating regulations concerning process validation and product consistency. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured problem-solving framework. This begins with clearly identifying the problem, as revealed by quality control measures. Next, root cause analysis should be conducted to understand why the deviations are occurring. Based on the root causes, potential solutions should be brainstormed, prioritizing those that involve process improvement and adherence to regulatory requirements. Each potential solution should be evaluated for its impact on quality, efficiency, cost, and compliance. The chosen solution should then be implemented with proper documentation, training, and monitoring to ensure its effectiveness and sustainability. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal a slight but persistent inconsistency in the carbonation levels of a specific beverage produced at a Coca-Cola HBC bottling facility. While the deviation is currently within the broader acceptable range, it is trending towards the lower end. The production team is under pressure to meet increased demand and optimize throughput. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation in accordance with Coca-Cola HBC's commitment to product quality and regulatory compliance? Option A. Focus on increasing production speed to compensate for any perceived minor quality variations, prioritizing output over detailed investigation. Option B. Implement a minor adjustment to the bottling line's pressure settings to bring the carbonation levels back to the center of the acceptable range, without further investigation. Option C. Continue production as is, assuming the current levels are acceptable and the trend is not a significant concern given the overall demand. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis involving quality assurance, production, and engineering to identify the source of the carbonation inconsistency and implement targeted corrective actions. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis involving quality assurance, production, and engineering to identify the source of the carbonation inconsistency and implement targeted corrective actions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's operations team due to the potential for product quality issues impacting consumer safety and brand reputation. Need to optimize processes while maintaining stringent quality standards requires careful judgment, balancing efficiency gains with regulatory compliance and ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the production line, focusing on identifying the root cause of the detected inconsistencies. This entails engaging cross-functional teams, including quality assurance, production, and engineering, to analyze data, conduct thorough inspections, and implement corrective actions. This methodical process ensures that any changes made are data-driven and effectively address the underlying problem, thereby upholding Coca-Cola HBC's commitment to product integrity and consumer trust. Adherence to food safety regulations, such as those outlined by the Food Standards Agency, FSA, in the UK, is paramount. These regulations mandate that food businesses take all reasonable steps to ensure that the food they produce is safe to eat. A reactive, superficial fix would not meet this standard. Implementing a quick fix without understanding the root cause is an incorrect approach because it risks masking the problem, leading to recurring issues and potential regulatory noncompliance. This could result in product recalls, fines, and significant damage to Coca-Cola HBC's reputation, violating the principle of due diligence required by food safety legislation. Focusing solely on cost reduction without addressing the quality deviation is also an incorrect approach. While efficiency is important, it cannot come at the expense of product safety and quality. This would contravene ethical business practices and potentially violate consumer protection laws that expect products to be of satisfactory quality and fit for purpose. Ignoring the quality control findings and continuing with the current process is the most egregious incorrect approach. This demonstrates a disregard for established quality control protocols and regulatory requirements, exposing consumers to potential harm and exposing Coca-Cola HBC to severe legal and reputational consequences. It directly violates the proactive stance required by food safety regulations, which emphasize preventing hazards rather than reacting to them. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes consumer safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Acknowledging and investigating quality deviations promptly. 2. Utilizing a structured problem-solving methodology, e.g., root cause analysis. 3. Engaging relevant stakeholders for comprehensive assessment. 4. Implementing evidence-based corrective and preventative actions. 5. Verifying the effectiveness of implemented solutions through ongoing monitoring. This systematic approach ensures that process optimization efforts are aligned with, rather than detrimental to, quality and safety standards. Question 9. Upon reviewing the production line efficiency report for Coca-Cola HBC's beverage bottling facility, a proposal is made to significantly alter the capping process to reduce waste and increase throughput. This proposal suggests bypassing the standard quality control checks for a subset of bottles to expedite the process. What is the most appropriate course of action for the operations manager? Option A. Delegate the decision to the production line supervisor, as they have direct knowledge of the day-to-day operations and can best judge the feasibility of the changes. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of the proposed changes, including potential effects on product quality, safety, and compliance with internal standards, before any implementation. Option C. Focus solely on the cost-saving aspect of the proposal, as efficiency improvements are primarily driven by reducing expenditure. Option D. Implement the proposed changes immediately to capitalize on the potential efficiency gains, as the report indicates a clear opportunity for improvement. The correct answer is D. Implement the proposed changes immediately to capitalize on the potential efficiency gains, as the report indicates a clear opportunity for improvement. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires Coca-Cola HBC to balance operational efficiency with adherence to its internal policies and potentially broader industry best practices for process optimization. The pressure to improve output and reduce waste can lead to shortcuts that might compromise quality, safety, or compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed optimization aligns with the company's strategic goals and ethical commitments, without introducing new risks. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven evaluation of the proposed process changes. This includes conducting a thorough impact assessment, considering all potential consequences beyond immediate cost savings, and ensuring that any changes are documented and approved through established internal procedures. This aligns with principles of good corporate governance and responsible business operations, which are implicitly expected of a company like Coca-Cola HBC, even if specific external regulations are not directly cited for this internal process. The focus is on sustainable improvement rather than short-term gains that could lead to long-term problems. An approach that prioritizes immediate cost reduction without a comprehensive review risks overlooking critical factors. This could lead to a failure to comply with internal quality control standards, potentially impacting product integrity and consumer trust. Furthermore, bypassing established approval processes can undermine internal controls and create a precedent for non-compliance, which is ethically unsound and could have reputational consequences. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals. This lacks the rigor necessary for effective process optimization and can lead to unintended negative consequences. It fails to leverage data and expertise across the organization, which is crucial for making informed decisions that benefit Coca-Cola HBC as a whole. This approach is professionally weak, as it relies on subjective rather than objective reasoning. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured problem-solving framework. This typically includes defining the problem or opportunity, gathering relevant data, analyzing potential solutions, evaluating the risks and benefits of each solution, selecting the best course of action, implementing the chosen solution, and monitoring its effectiveness. For process optimization within Coca-Cola HBC, this means engaging relevant stakeholders, utilizing data analytics, and adhering to internal governance and approval protocols to ensure that improvements are robust, sustainable, and aligned with the company's values. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that several key operational processes within Coca-Cola HBC's bottling facilities are experiencing increasing inefficiencies, leading to higher waste levels and slower throughput. To address this, what is the most appropriate initial step for the process optimization team to take? Option A. Prioritize process changes based on the loudest complaints from line supervisors, assuming they represent the most critical issues. Option B. Focus solely on reducing labor costs by automating tasks, as this is typically the most significant driver of operational expenses. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the identified inefficiencies, utilizing data from production logs, quality control reports, and direct observation of the bottling lines. Option D. Immediately implement a series of standardized lean manufacturing techniques across all affected facilities to streamline operations. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the identified inefficiencies, utilizing data from production logs, quality control reports, and direct observation of the bottling lines. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with adherence to Coca-Cola HBC's internal policies and potentially broader industry best practices for process optimization. The challenge lies in identifying improvements that are both impactful and compliant, avoiding shortcuts that could lead to regulatory breaches or reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine process enhancements and those that might inadvertently compromise data integrity, product quality, or employee safety, all of which are critical areas for a company like Coca-Cola HBC. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven evaluation of existing processes, focusing on identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies through objective analysis. This includes engaging relevant stakeholders, such as operations managers and quality control personnel, to gather comprehensive insights. The justification for this approach lies in its alignment with principles of good corporate governance and responsible business conduct. By prioritizing a thorough, evidence-based review, Coca-Cola HBC demonstrates a commitment to sustainable improvement and risk mitigation, which are implicitly expected under general business ethics and operational standards. This methodical process ensures that any proposed changes are well understood, validated, and implemented in a manner that upholds the company's standards and avoids unintended negative consequences. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on quality control mechanisms would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the implicit regulatory and ethical obligation to maintain product integrity and consumer safety. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing established change management protocols to implement optimizations quickly would also be flawed. This bypasses necessary checks and balances, increasing the risk of errors, system failures, or non-compliance with internal procedures, which can have significant operational and reputational repercussions. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions rather than empirical data for identifying areas of improvement lacks the rigor expected in professional process optimization. This can lead to misallocation of resources and the implementation of ineffective solutions, undermining the very purpose of the review. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of the process optimization. This should be followed by a comprehensive data gathering phase, involving both quantitative and qualitative methods. Stakeholder consultation is crucial throughout the process to ensure buy-in and identify potential risks. Proposed solutions should then be evaluated against predefined criteria, including efficiency gains, cost-effectiveness, impact on quality, safety, and compliance with internal policies and external regulations. Finally, a pilot testing phase and a robust monitoring plan are essential to validate the effectiveness of implemented changes and allow for further adjustments. Question 11. The performance metrics show a significant opportunity for process optimization within Coca-Cola HBC's supply chain operations, potentially leading to substantial cost savings. However, the proposed changes involve reclassifying certain operational expenses and altering inventory valuation methods. Which of the following approaches best aligns with Coca-Cola HBC's regulatory obligations and professional best practices in the UK? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed changes, assessing their impact on financial reporting accuracy, compliance with UK accounting standards, e.g., FRS 102, and disclosure requirements under the FCA listing rules before any implementation. Option B. Communicate the potential cost savings to investors upfront, without detailing the specific accounting or operational changes to manage market expectations. Option C. Prioritize the speed of implementation to gain a competitive advantage, assuming that any financial reporting adjustments can be managed through year-end audits. Option D. Implement the proposed process changes immediately to realize cost savings, and then retrospectively adjust financial records and disclosures as needed. The correct answer is D. Implement the proposed process changes immediately to realize cost savings, and then retrospectively adjust financial records and disclosures as needed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Coca-Cola HBC, as a large, publicly traded company, operates within a highly regulated environment. Decisions regarding process optimization must not only aim for efficiency and cost savings, but also adhere strictly to relevant UK financial regulations and corporate governance principles. The challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of operational improvements with the imperative to maintain transparency, accuracy, and fairness in financial reporting and stakeholder communication. Missteps can lead to regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of investor confidence. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven analysis that considers the potential impact on financial reporting and regulatory compliance. This means meticulously documenting the proposed changes, assessing their financial implications with precision, and ensuring that all disclosures are accurate and timely, as mandated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, listing rules, and the UK Corporate Governance Code. This approach prioritizes integrity and compliance, safeguarding the company's reputation and legal standing. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a comprehensive assessment of its impact on financial reporting would fail to meet regulatory obligations. For instance, prematurely recognizing cost savings or misrepresenting the nature of the changes could violate accounting standards and FCA disclosure requirements, leading to potential investigations and sanctions. Another incorrect approach that involves making significant operational changes without proper internal controls or independent verification risks introducing errors into financial data. This undermines the reliability of financial statements, which is a cornerstone of corporate governance and investor protection under UK law. A further incorrect approach that involves communicating proposed changes to stakeholders in a misleading or incomplete manner would breach principles of transparency and good corporate governance. This can erode trust and lead to accusations of market manipulation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes identifying potential impacts on financial reporting, regulatory compliance, and stakeholder relations. It requires engaging relevant internal departments, e.g., finance, legal, compliance, and potentially external advisors. Decisions should be made based on a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape, ethical considerations, and the long-term strategic interests of Coca-Cola HBC and its stakeholders. Question 12. Examination of the data shows that Coca-Cola HBC is considering a significant process optimization initiative within its supply chain operations, projected to yield substantial cost savings and efficiency improvements. The marketing department is eager to announce these projected benefits to investors and the public to enhance the company's perceived performance. Which of the following actions best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional conduct for Coca-Cola HBC? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed optimization with internal audit and legal departments to assess its feasibility, potential risks, and disclosure implications before any public announcement. Option B. Immediately implement the optimization and publicly announce the projected cost savings and efficiency improvements as confirmed outcomes. Option C. Implement the optimization and only disclose the actual realized savings after the initiative has been fully completed and verified. Option D. Publicly announce the projected cost savings and efficiency improvements, emphasizing that these are estimates and subject to change. The correct answer is B. Immediately implement the optimization and publicly announce the projected cost savings and efficiency improvements as confirmed outcomes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Coca-Cola HBC, as a publicly listed company, operates under strict regulatory scrutiny regarding its financial reporting and operational disclosures. The pressure to present a positive financial outlook can create a conflict between achieving business objectives and adhering to transparency requirements. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization efforts are communicated accurately and do not mislead stakeholders. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed process optimization by the internal audit and legal departments. This ensures that any changes are compliant with relevant financial reporting standards and disclosure obligations, specifically under UK regulatory frameworks, such as the UK Corporate Governance Code and listing rules. Companies are obligated to provide timely and accurate information to the market. Any significant operational changes that could impact financial performance or future outlook must be assessed for their disclosure implications. This approach prioritizes compliance and transparency, safeguarding the company's reputation and avoiding potential regulatory sanctions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement the optimization and communicate the projected savings without independent verification. This fails to account for the potential risks and uncertainties inherent in process changes, which could lead to overstating future benefits. Such an action could be seen as a breach of the listing rules requirement for fair and balanced disclosure, potentially misleading investors. Another incorrect approach would be to delay the implementation of the optimization due to minor concerns raised by a single department, without a structured process for addressing those concerns. This could lead to missed opportunities for efficiency gains and potentially impact the company's competitive position. But more importantly, it fails to engage the necessary compliance functions to ensure that any communication about the optimization is accurate and timely. A further incorrect approach would be to communicate the projected savings to the market without a clear understanding of the underlying assumptions and potential risks. This could lead to accusations of market manipulation or misleading statements, violating principles of fair disclosure and potentially triggering investigations by the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves understanding the company's disclosure obligations, engaging relevant internal stakeholders, legal, compliance, internal audit, to assess risks and ensure accuracy, and communicating changes in a transparent and balanced manner. The focus should always be on providing stakeholders with reliable information to make informed decisions. Question 13. Assessment of the most appropriate method for a Coca-Cola HBC logistics manager to propose a significant alteration to the warehouse inventory management system to improve picking efficiency, considering potential impacts on data integrity and compliance with UK operational guidelines. Option A. Immediately implement the proposed system changes based on the manager's assessment of potential efficiency gains, documenting the changes retrospectively. Option B. Rely solely on industry best practices for warehouse management, assuming they align with Coca-Cola HBC's specific operational context and UK regulations. Option C. Seek informal approval from a senior colleague without formal documentation or a review of potential regulatory implications. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of existing Coca-Cola HBC Standard Operating Procedures, SOP, and relevant UK legislation. Consult with the IT and compliance departments, and present a detailed proposal with risk assessments and mitigation strategies. The correct answer is A. Immediately implement the proposed system changes based on the manager's assessment of potential efficiency gains, documenting the changes retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a Coca-Cola HBC employee tasked with optimizing a key operational process. The challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of efficiency gains with the imperative to adhere strictly to the company's internal policies and relevant UK regulatory frameworks governing operational practices and data handling. A hasty or ill-informed decision could lead to non-compliance, operational disruptions, or reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed optimization aligns with both business objectives and legal/ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing Coca-Cola HBC Standard Operating Procedures, SOP, and relevant UK legislation, such as the Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act 1974 and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, if personal data is involved in the process. This ensures that any proposed changes are not only efficient but also compliant, safe, and ethical. Specifically, it requires understanding how the proposed optimization impacts worker safety, environmental standards, and data privacy. By consulting internal guidelines and external regulations, the employee demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to responsible business practices, which is a core ethical expectation for employees in regulated industries. An incorrect approach that bypasses internal review and regulatory checks is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for established governance structures and legal requirements. For instance, implementing a change without consulting SOPs could violate internal controls designed to ensure quality and consistency. ignoring potential regulatory implications, such as those related to waste disposal under the Environmental Protection Act 1990 or data handling under GDPR, could lead to significant fines, legal action, and damage to Coca-Cola HBC's reputation. Another incorrect approach might be to prioritize speed over thoroughness, leading to unforeseen consequences that undermine the very efficiency sought. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and an understanding of the interconnectedness of operational efficiency, compliance, and risk management. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process when considering process optimization. This begins with clearly defining the problem and objectives. Next, they should identify all relevant internal policies and external regulations that might be impacted. This involves consulting with legal, compliance, and health and safety departments as necessary. Brainstorming potential solutions should then be followed by a rigorous evaluation of each option against the defined objectives, internal policies, and regulatory requirements. The chosen solution should be the one that best balances efficiency with compliance and ethical considerations, with a clear plan for implementation and monitoring. Question 14. Which approach would be most effective for Coca-Cola HBC to optimize its bottling process while ensuring continued adherence to product quality and regulatory standards? Option A. Prioritizing immediate cost reductions by streamlining existing manual quality checks and increasing line speed, assuming that minor deviations in product consistency are acceptable for short-term gains. Option B. Adopting a competitor's recently implemented process optimization strategy without internal validation, assuming their success indicates universal applicability. Option C. Conducting a comprehensive pilot study of proposed process modifications on a limited production run, rigorously analyzing quality control data and regulatory compliance metrics before a full-scale rollout. Option D. Implementing a new, highly automated bottling line based on vendor specifications and projected efficiency gains, with a plan to address any quality issues that arise post-implementation. The correct answer is D. Implementing a new, highly automated bottling line based on vendor specifications and projected efficiency gains, with a plan to address any quality issues that arise post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's operations team as they aim to optimize their bottling process. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost reduction with the imperative to maintain product quality, safety, and compliance with relevant regulations. A hasty or poorly considered optimization could inadvertently lead to deviations from established standards, potentially impacting consumer trust and incurring regulatory penalties. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process improvements are robust, validated, and do not compromise the integrity of the product or the company's adherence to its operational and ethical commitments. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven methodology that prioritizes validation and risk assessment. This approach typically entails pilot testing the proposed optimization on a smaller scale, meticulously collecting data on key performance indicators, KPI, such as output, defect rates, energy consumption, and waste generation. Crucially, this phase would also involve rigorous quality control checks and, where applicable, consultation with regulatory bodies or adherence to industry best practices to ensure no compromise on product safety or compliance. This methodical validation ensures that the optimization is not only efficient, but also sustainable, safe, and compliant, thereby upholding Coca-Cola HBC's commitment to quality and regulatory standards. An approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without adequate validation poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Implementing changes without thorough testing could lead to an increase in product defects, potentially resulting in recalls, damage to brand reputation, and fines for non-compliance with food safety regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt a new technology based purely on vendor claims without independent verification of its performance and safety under Coca-Cola HBC's specific operating conditions. This could lead to unforeseen operational issues, increased downtime, and potential breaches of environmental or safety regulations. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses established quality assurance protocols in the name of speed would be ethically unsound, as it prioritizes expediency over the fundamental responsibility to deliver safe and high-quality products to consumers. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that integrates efficiency goals with a strong emphasis on risk management and regulatory adherence. This involves a phased implementation strategy, initial research and feasibility studies, followed by controlled pilot testing, comprehensive data analysis, and a final rollout only after all performance, quality, and compliance metrics have been met and validated. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure ongoing adherence to standards and to identify any emergent issues promptly. Question 15. Implementation of a new promotional campaign by Coca-Cola, HBC, requires sales representatives to actively engage with potential business clients. A representative, under pressure to meet quarterly targets, encounters a small business owner who expresses interest, but also concerns about the cost and suitability of the proposed beverage package. The representative, eager to close the deal, emphasizes the perceived cost savings without fully detailing the contractual obligations and upsell opportunities that might arise later. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the Coca-Cola HBC representative? Option A. Focus on the perceived benefits and downplay any potential downsides or complexities of the contract to ensure the client feels confident and agrees to the purchase. Option B. Suggest a larger, more expensive package than initially discussed, arguing that it offers better long-term value, regardless of the client's stated budget concerns. Option C. Clearly and transparently explain all contractual terms, potential future costs, and suitability of the package for the client's specific business needs, even if it means the sale might not be closed immediately. Option D. Proceed with the sale, highlighting the immediate cost savings to secure the deal and meet targets, assuming the client will understand the full terms later. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the sale, highlighting the immediate cost savings to secure the deal and meet targets, assuming the client will understand the full terms later. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC employees due to the inherent conflict between achieving sales targets and adhering to ethical sales practices, particularly when dealing with potentially vulnerable customers. Pressure to meet performance metrics can inadvertently encourage aggressive or misleading sales tactics, which can have serious reputational and legal consequences for the company. Careful judgment is required to balance business objectives with the imperative of fair and honest customer engagement. The correct approach involves prioritizing customer well-being and transparency above immediate sales gains. This means actively listening to customer needs, providing accurate product information, and avoiding any form of undue pressure or misrepresentation. This aligns with the principles of responsible business conduct and customer protection, which are implicitly or explicitly embedded in general business ethics and consumer protection guidelines that would be relevant to Coca-Cola HBC's operations. While specific UK regulations are not provided for this exam, the underlying ethical principles of fair trading and consumer protection are universally recognized and would be expected to be followed by any reputable company operating within the UK. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting sales targets without regard for customer understanding or consent would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to mis-selling, where customers are persuaded to purchase products they do not need or understand, potentially resulting in dissatisfaction and complaints. Such actions could also breach general principles of contract law and consumer rights, exposing Coca-Cola HBC to regulatory scrutiny and damage to its brand reputation. Another incorrect approach that involves exaggerating product benefits or downplaying potential drawbacks is also ethically and professionally unsound. This constitutes misrepresentation, which erodes customer trust and can lead to legal challenges. It fails to uphold the principle of providing accurate and truthful information, a cornerstone of ethical business practice. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of company policies on ethical sales and customer service. Employees should be trained to identify situations where customer needs might be misunderstood or where pressure tactics could be perceived. When in doubt, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the compliance department is crucial. The ultimate goal should be to build long-term customer relationships based on trust and mutual benefit, rather than short-term sales figures achieved through questionable means. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of noncompliance with ethical labor standards by a key supplier of Coca-Cola HBC in Eastern Europe. The matrix also indicates a high potential impact on Coca-Cola HBC's brand reputation if this noncompliance becomes public. Coca-Cola HBC is currently reviewing its contracts for the upcoming year and is under pressure to reduce operational costs. What is the most appropriate course of action for Coca-Cola HBC? Option A. Implement a series of cost reduction mandates for the supplier without investigating the specific nature of the identified risks, expecting them to absorb the cost pressures. Option B. Initiate a detailed audit of the supplier's labor practices. Engage in direct dialogue with the supplier to understand and address any identified issues, and explore collaborative solutions for improvement before making a decision on contract renewal. Option C. Immediately terminate the contract with the supplier to avoid any potential reputational damage and seek a new supplier with a lower cost base. Option D. Renew the contract with the supplier as is, assuming the risk matrix is overly cautious, and focus cost-saving efforts elsewhere within Coca-Cola HBC's operations. The correct answer is B. Initiate a detailed audit of the supplier's labor practices. Engage in direct dialogue with the supplier to understand and address any identified issues, and explore collaborative solutions for improvement before making a decision on contract renewal. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires Coca-Cola HBC to balance the immediate need for cost reduction with its long-term commitment to ethical sourcing and supply chain integrity. The risk matrix highlights potential vulnerabilities, but acting solely on cost without considering the broader implications could lead to reputational damage, regulatory scrutiny, and a breach of ethical principles. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any cost-saving measures do not compromise the company's values or its adherence to relevant regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that prioritizes understanding the root causes of the identified risks and developing mitigation strategies that align with Coca-Cola HBC's ethical sourcing policies and any applicable UK regulations concerning supply chain transparency and corporate social responsibility. This approach is professionally sound because it demonstrates a commitment to responsible business practices, which is increasingly expected by stakeholders and regulators. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and the ethical considerations embedded within UK company law and industry best practices, such as those promoted by HBC. By investigating the supplier's practices and engaging in dialogue, Coca-Cola HBC can identify areas for improvement and work collaboratively to address risks, rather than making abrupt decisions that could have unintended negative consequences. An incorrect approach would be to immediately terminate the contract with the supplier based solely on the risk matrix without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the potential for remediation and could lead to supply chain disruption, impacting Coca-Cola HBC's operations and potentially violating contractual obligations. Ethically, it bypasses the principle of fairness and the opportunity for a supplier to rectify issues. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the contract renewal without any further action, assuming the risk matrix is overly cautious. This demonstrates a disregard for identified risks and a failure to exercise due diligence, potentially exposing Coca-Cola HBC to significant reputational and operational damage if the risks materialize. It neglects the company's responsibility to manage its supply chain effectively and ethically. A third incorrect approach would be to implement superficial cost-cutting measures within Coca-Cola HBC's own operations that indirectly pressure the supplier to reduce their costs without understanding the supplier's specific challenges. This could lead the supplier to cut corners on quality or ethical practices, thereby exacerbating the very risks the matrix identified. It represents a failure to engage directly with the identified supply chain risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment and management framework. This includes 1. Understanding the nature and likelihood of identified risks. 2. Assessing the potential impact of these risks on the business, stakeholders, and reputation. 3. Exploring all available mitigation options, including dialogue, collaboration, and alternative sourcing. 4. Evaluating the costs and benefits of each option, considering both financial and non-financial factors. And 5. Making a decision that is aligned with the company's ethical standards, regulatory obligations, and long-term strategic objectives. Question 17. During the evaluation of a new beverage formulation for Coca-Cola HBC, it was discovered that the ingredient list on the preliminary packaging artwork inaccurately omits a minor, but potentially allergenic, ingredient. The marketing team is eager to proceed with the planned launch date to meet sales targets and suggests a minor amendment to the website description to clarify the ingredient's presence, rather than reprinting all packaging. As a Coca-Cola HBC employee responsible for product compliance, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Proceed with the launch as planned, assuming consumers will not notice the omission on the packaging and the website clarification is sufficient. Option B. Request a formal risk assessment from the legal department regarding the potential impact of the labeling omission before making a decision. Option C. Insist on correcting the ingredient list on all packaging and delaying the launch until the revised packaging is produced and distributed. Option D. Approve the launch with the website amendment, as the omission is minor and the marketing team's solution addresses the issue. The correct answer is C. Insist on correcting the ingredient list on all packaging and delaying the launch until the revised packaging is produced and distributed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a Coca-Cola HBC employee due to the potential conflict between business objectives and ethical conduct, particularly concerning the accurate representation of product information. Maintaining customer trust and adhering to regulatory standards for product labeling are paramount. The employee must navigate the pressure to meet targets while upholding integrity and compliance. The correct approach involves prioritizing accurate and transparent product labeling, even if it means a temporary delay in product launch or a revision to marketing materials. This aligns with the principles of consumer protection and fair trading practices, which are fundamental to regulatory frameworks governing product information and advertising. Specifically, it upholds the spirit of regulations that mandate truthful and non-misleading information to consumers, preventing any form of deception. This approach demonstrates a commitment to ethical business practices and long-term brand reputation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting the launch deadline without addressing the misrepresentation of ingredients would be a failure to comply with consumer protection laws. Such laws typically prohibit the sale of products with false or misleading labeling, as this can deceive consumers about the product's composition, potential allergens, or suitability for their needs. Another incorrect approach, which involves attempting to subtly downplay the discrepancy in marketing without correcting the label, would also constitute a breach of advertising standards and consumer protection legislation. This is because it still relies on a misleading premise and fails to provide consumers with the accurate information they are legally entitled to. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the potential regulatory and ethical risks. This involves a thorough understanding of the relevant consumer protection laws and advertising standards. The next step is to assess the impact of the misrepresentation on consumers and the company's reputation. Finally, the professional should advocate for the most ethical and compliant course of action, which is to correct the labeling and marketing materials before product release, even if it incurs additional costs or delays. This prioritizes integrity and compliance over short-term gains. Question 18. The risk matrix shows a potential discrepancy in inventory valuation for a key product line at Coca-Cola HBC's European operations. The discrepancy appears to stem from a new inventory management system that was recently implemented. The finance department has flagged this as a potential area of concern that could impact reported profitability for the current quarter. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for Coca-Cola HBC to address this potential inventory valuation discrepancy? Option A. Publicly announce that a potential inventory valuation discrepancy has been identified without providing further details to preemptively inform the market. Option B. Immediately adjust the reported inventory valuation based on the initial flagged discrepancy to avoid any potential misstatement in the quarterly financial report. Option C. Instruct the operations team to revert to the old inventory management system until the new system's issues are fully resolved, without further investigation into the current discrepancy. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation to understand the root cause, quantify the financial impact, and determine if the discrepancy is material, consulting with relevant internal departments and potentially external auditors. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation to understand the root cause, quantify the financial impact, and determine if the discrepancy is material, consulting with relevant internal departments and potentially external auditors. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because Coca-Cola HBC, as a publicly listed company, operates under strict regulatory scrutiny, particularly concerning financial reporting and market integrity. The risk matrix highlights a potential discrepancy that, if not addressed appropriately, could lead to misstatements in financial reports, investor misinformation, and regulatory penalties. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for accurate financial reporting with the operational realities of a large, complex business. Careful judgment is required to determine the materiality and implications of the identified issue. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented investigation into the identified discrepancy. This includes gathering all relevant documentation, consulting with internal experts, e.g., finance, legal, operations, and potentially engaging external auditors or advisors. The objective is to ascertain the root cause of the discrepancy, quantify its financial impact, and determine if it constitutes a material misstatement requiring disclosure or adjustment. This approach aligns with the principles of sound corporate governance and regulatory compliance, such as those outlined in the UK Corporate Governance Code and the Financial Conduct Authority's (FCA) disclosure guidance and transparency rules. These frameworks mandate that companies maintain accurate accounting records and provide timely and accurate information to the market. By undertaking a systematic investigation, Coca-Cola HBC demonstrates its commitment to transparency and its adherence to its legal and ethical obligations. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the discrepancy without proper investigation, assuming it is minor or an isolated incident. This failure to investigate could lead to material misstatements in financial reports, violating accounting standards, and potentially breaching the FCA's listing rules, which require listed companies to notify the market of any information that might reasonably be expected to be, or is likely to be, price-sensitive. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disclose the discrepancy to the market without a full understanding of its nature, impact, or resolution. This premature disclosure could cause undue market volatility and damage investor confidence, potentially contravening the FCA's Market Abuse Regulation, (MAR), which aims to prevent insider dealing and market manipulation. Furthermore, attempting to conceal or downplay the discrepancy would be a severe ethical and regulatory breach, undermining the integrity of financial reporting and potentially leading to significant legal and reputational damage. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework when encountering such issues. This framework typically involves 1. Identification and initial assessment of the issue. 2. Escalation to appropriate internal stakeholders and subject matter experts. 3. Thorough investigation and data gathering. 4. Analysis of findings, including materiality assessment. 5. Determination of appropriate action, which may include internal adjustments, external disclosures, or remediation of underlying processes. 6. Documentation of the entire process and decision-making. This systematic approach ensures that all relevant factors are considered, regulatory obligations are met, and the company's integrity is maintained. Question 19. Performance analysis shows that a key supplier to Coca-Cola HBC, with whom the company has had a positive working relationship for several years, is due for contract renewal. The head of procurement has a personal friendship with the CEO of this supplier. While the supplier has consistently met performance expectations, the head of procurement is considering bypassing the standard competitive bidding process and recommending an automatic renewal based on their existing relationship and the supplier's track record, without formally evaluating other potential vendors. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ethical business practices and robust corporate governance for Coca-Cola HBC in this situation? Option A. Inform the supplier's CEO of the upcoming renewal and ask for their best and final offer before initiating any formal evaluation process to leverage the personal relationship for a better deal. Option B. Automatically renew the contract with the existing supplier due to the long-standing positive relationship and the personal connection of the head of procurement to maintain continuity and avoid disruption. Option C. Initiate a competitive bidding process but instruct the procurement team to favor the incumbent supplier due to their established performance and the head of procurement's recommendation. Option D. Conduct a thorough and documented evaluation of all potential suppliers, including the incumbent, using objective criteria, and ensure the decision is based on the best overall value for Coca-Cola HBC, with any personal relationship being disclosed and managed appropriately. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough and documented evaluation of all potential suppliers, including the incumbent, using objective criteria, and ensure the decision is based on the best overall value for Coca-Cola HBC, with any personal relationship being disclosed and managed appropriately. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge for Coca-Cola HBC's management team due to the potential for conflicts of interest and the need to uphold ethical standards in procurement. The company's commitment to fair competition and avoiding undue influence requires careful consideration of relationships with suppliers. The challenge lies in balancing the benefits of long-standing supplier relationships with the imperative to ensure that all procurement decisions are objective and based on merit, not personal connections. The correct approach involves a transparent and documented process for evaluating all potential suppliers, including those with whom existing relationships exist. This approach is justified by the principles of good corporate governance and ethical business conduct, which mandate fairness, impartiality, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. Specifically, it aligns with the spirit of regulations that promote fair competition and prevent insider dealing or preferential treatment, even if not explicitly detailed in a specific hiring assessment test framework. The underlying ethical principles are universally recognized in professional business environments. By requiring a formal review and justification for any supplier selection, Coca-Cola HBC demonstrates its commitment to integrity and its adherence to best practices in supply chain management. An incorrect approach that involves awarding a contract based solely on a personal recommendation from a senior executive without a formal evaluation process fails to uphold the principles of fair competition and transparency. This could be perceived as favoritism and may violate internal company policies designed to prevent conflicts of interest. It also opens the door to potential ethical breaches, as it bypasses objective criteria and could lead to suboptimal business decisions if the recommended supplier is not the most suitable. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the existing relationship and treat the supplier as entirely new without acknowledging the history, is also problematic. While objectivity is crucial, completely disregarding a known entity's performance and reliability can be inefficient and may not represent the most prudent business decision. The ethical failure here is a lack of due diligence in leveraging existing knowledge about a supplier's capabilities and track record, potentially leading to a less informed decision. A further incorrect approach, which is to automatically renew the contract with the existing supplier due to the personal relationship, is a direct contravention of fair procurement practices. This demonstrates a clear conflict of interest and a failure to seek the best value for the company. It undermines the competitive process and can lead to complacency and a lack of innovation from the supplier, ultimately harming Coca-Cola HBC's interests. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the company's procurement policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with potential conflicts of interest, professionals should always err on the side of transparency and due process. This includes documenting all decisions, seeking independent review where necessary, and ensuring that all choices are demonstrably in the best interest of the company, free from personal bias or undue influence. Question 20. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual pattern in Coca-Cola HBC's transaction data that deviates from established norms. This deviation is not immediately identifiable as a clear breach, but warrants further scrutiny. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial response for Coca-Cola HBC's compliance team to ensure adherence to UK regulatory requirements and CISI guidelines? Option A. Implement immediate, broad-based corrective actions across all relevant systems to mitigate potential risks, assuming the anomaly indicates a systemic issue. Option B. Classify the anomaly as a minor operational fluctuation and monitor it passively without further immediate action. Option C. Immediately escalate the anomaly to the relevant regulatory authorities for their review and guidance. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive internal investigation to gather all pertinent data, identify the root cause, and assess the nature and materiality of the deviation before any external communication. The correct answer is C. Immediately escalate the anomaly to the relevant regulatory authorities for their review and guidance. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires Coca-Cola HBC to balance the need for efficient operational monitoring with the strict regulatory requirements governing data handling and reporting. The challenge lies in interpreting potentially ambiguous data and ensuring that any actions taken are fully compliant with the specified regulatory framework, which in this case is the UK regulatory framework and HBC guidelines relevant to financial services and corporate conduct. Misinterpreting the monitoring system's output or acting prematurely without proper verification could lead to regulatory breaches, reputational damage, and financial penalties. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor operational fluctuations and potential compliance issues that necessitate immediate escalation or corrective action. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based investigation of the anomaly identified by the monitoring system. This approach prioritizes accuracy and compliance by seeking to understand the root cause of the deviation before taking any action. Specifically, it entails gathering all relevant internal data, cross-referencing it with external market information where applicable, and consulting with relevant internal departments, e.g., compliance, operations, risk management, to form a comprehensive picture. This methodical process ensures that any subsequent reporting or corrective actions are accurate, timely, and fully aligned with the UK regulatory framework and HBC guidelines, which emphasize due diligence, accurate record-keeping, and appropriate escalation of potential breaches. An incorrect approach that involves immediately reporting the anomaly to regulators without sufficient investigation fails to uphold the principle of due diligence. Regulatory bodies expect firms to conduct their own thorough investigations to ascertain the facts before reporting. Premature reporting can be seen as an overreaction, potentially causing unnecessary alarm and consuming regulatory resources. Furthermore, it may indicate a lack of internal control and investigative capability. Another incorrect approach, which is to disregard the anomaly as a minor operational issue without proper verification, poses significant regulatory risk. This approach neglects the possibility that the anomaly could be indicative of a more serious compliance breach, market manipulation, or a systemic operational failure. The UK regulatory framework and HBC guidelines place a strong emphasis on proactive identification and management of risks, and ignoring potential red flags is a direct contravention of these principles. It demonstrates a failure in risk management and a lack of commitment to maintaining regulatory standards. Finally, an approach that involves making assumptions about the cause of the anomaly and implementing corrective actions based on these assumptions, without concrete evidence, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to ineffective solutions, wasted resources, and potentially create new compliance issues. The professional decision-making process in such situations should always begin with a clear understanding of the regulatory obligations. This involves establishing a robust internal control framework, implementing effective monitoring systems, and defining clear protocols for investigating and escalating any identified deviations. When an anomaly is detected, the process should involve 1. Immediate acknowledgement and logging of the alert. 2. A structured investigation to gather facts and identify the root cause. 3. Consultation with relevant experts and stakeholders. 4. Determination of the appropriate course of action based on the findings, which may include internal remediation, external reporting, or no action if the anomaly is deemed benign. And 5. Thorough documentation of the entire process for audit and regulatory review.